Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome. I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today is the author of Crazy to Leave You, Husbands and Other Sharp Objects, and Lift and Separate, all from Lake Union Publishing. For more than 25 years, she owned an advertising agency in Connecticut. She grew up in New York City, earned a degree in journalism from New York University, began her writing career at 17 magazine, and married a man she met in an elevator. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Marilyn Simon Rothstein.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Our opening question on Authors Over 50 is always, what took you so long to write your first book?
Well, I published my first book when I was 63. So I guess you could say that it took me a lifetime to write it. I opened an advertising agency. I was a copywriter who became the owner. And all the while, I had the dream of publishing a novel. And when I got into my 50s, I decided it was time to pack in the advertising and do my dream. And so I started working on Lift and Separate. And it took 10 years from when I started, the first day that I typed, to when it was published. And it was worth every minute because now I'm working on my fourth book.
Well, you're quite prolific now. That's pretty fast work. And Marilyn, your humor just jumps off the page. When did you realize you were funny?
You know, I honestly didn't realize I was funny until I published the book. I wrote Lift and Separate, and people kept telling me I was so funny. And nobody in my family ever told me I was funny. They just, I was the way I was. So in publishing the book, it brought forth, a personality trait that I guess was there all the time, but I never thought about.
Well, people seem to be born with humor or not. Do you really think it's a personality trait or a skill that can be developed?
I think that if you're in a certain kind of home, you could develop a sense of humor, but I don't think you can develop being funny. A lot of people think being funny is telling a joke. But being really funny is seeing things and observing and seeing something really odd about it and expressing that, and other people react to your expression of that by laughing. So I was very lucky. I think I was born with a trait, but I think it was way enhanced by my family. And at the time I was growing up, a child did not butt into anything. So I used to sit around for hours listening to my aunts and my uncles doing what is called kibitzing, which means joking around about things, at the dining room table, savoring it all up, and then one day starting to use it, knowing it was the only way I could get involved in the conversation. if I made them laugh.
Well, that was a great audience for your first attempts, and now you've perfected the skill.
Thank you.
Once you wrote your first book, how did you proceed? Did you search for an agent, decide to use a hybrid, a small press, or did you self-publish?
I have a great story about finding an agent. I didn't know anybody. The book was done. I had sent it out for about a year. And finally, I decided what I was going to do was I was going to deliver the book, the manuscript, to 5 agents. How I was going to find them was I was going to go through that book in the library and find people who I thought I had something in common with. So that because the book was about an older woman. So I didn't want to go through the people my daughter's age who were, at the gates. I wanted to reach somebody who was my age. So I made 5 copies and I got the name of 5 agents. And I went to New York and I was going to hand deliver to the 5 agents, even though it says in every book, don't go to the agent's office, ask first if you can send it. My advice to everyone is forget those rules. So my husband I sort of lost my courage, and my husband was going downtown, and all of 4 of the agents were in the village. And he said he would take it down, and I thought this could be good because it's a man, and men writers get a lot more attention than women writers. So my husband, who's let's just say this, my husband's glass is brimming over, and I don't have a glass. Okay, he comes back. And I expect him to be rah, rah, rah about, he went in and he met these people and blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh my God, you look like nothing happened. He said, well, there were 3 you might hear from, but 1 is definitely a no. And I said, how can you be so pessimistic? You're an optimistic person. And he said, well, 1 is definitely a no because he died last week. Now I look on the pile. I've got 1 left. It's for New Jersey. I think to myself, I am not driving to New Jersey. She could be dead too, right? So I pop the manuscript in the mail to her. And my husband and I were leaving for a trip to Scotland. I got to Scotland and the agent in New Jersey called to say she wanted to take my book.
Wow.
So the point I'm bringing up is I did not go by the rules. When I spent a year going by the rules, nothing. I mean, I got requests, but I didn't get an agent. And she signed me to a 2-book deal at Lake Union. And that's how I started writing fast.
Well, that is a fabulous story and quick work, Marilyn, because most people have sent out 100 requests to agents and sometimes don't even hear back.
Yes, I know.
What do you think is the most challenging part of your artistic process?
Sitting down and starting is without a doubt. I can procrastinate like as though sitting down in front of my computer is the same as deciding to go into the lion's den. Okay? So I can procrastinate 1,000 ways. Once I sit down, I'm good.
Do you think writing that first book changed your process of writing?
No, I don't think it changed my process, but I learned so much from actually putting a book together because I thought, you wrote a manuscript and somebody just bought it. Well, they must have liked it, so they're probably going to just change but to and put a comma where there was a semicolon and say, Marilyn, here's your book. Come to find out, when someone buys the book, you're first getting started.
And it's a long process after that.
Yes. Yes, it takes about a year after the book is, you sign after you sign the contract. It takes about a year. And with my editor, my publisher, Lake Union, there's a complete development process. And in a development process, they are telling you not about little copy changes, like you called the dress red in one sentence and you called it pink in another. They are telling you major things they think are either holes in the story or could make the story better. For example, one of the comments about my first book, Lift and Separate, was that the woman was going through a divorce. Her husband is leaving her after 33 years of marriage, 3 grown children. She's given up her career. I like to write books that start with someone in a lousy situation and show a lot of sympathy toward the person and make the reader laugh as they go along on the trip. Anyway, I was told that I had made the children too mean. I had made her children too mean. So I'm like thinking, I don't know, they sound just like my daughters. Okay. You have to make the children nicer. She's got enough problems. You're giving her mother's sick, her husband left her, she doesn't have a job. Now you're going to give her children who are making her life even more miserable. So I thought about it and I thought, you know what, they're right. And I just sat down and I eliminated every part where I thought the children had gone overboard. And here's what I thought to myself. Literature is so great because if I could do that in real life, like my daughter walks to the door and says something I would rather not hear, and I get to say, go out, come back again, and be a little nicer. So those are the kind of things that are developmental changes.
Yes, if we could only wave our magic wands and make all of our children as perfect as we could in our manuscripts.
Yes, and everyone, you can change them on a dime, and you can't do that in life. You can't change anybody.
Well, I love your books that are written about women our age. The majority of books in the U.S. and probably the world are purchased by women in our age bracket, but we don't get to see ourselves in many of those books.
True. And when I wrote Lift and Separate, the character was 55 years old. And my second book, Husbands and Other Sharp Objects, I guess I wasn't done tormenting poor Marcy Hammer, my protagonist, because I wrote a second book. They can both be read separately, and you don't have to read them in order. But this character is dealing with getting divorced from her husband while her daughter is about to marry her husband's lawyer.
Wow.
So that was a lot of fun.
And where do you get your inspiration for these books? Do you know people like this? Do you just dream them up?
I get the basic ideas come from my home and my world and all the people I have known forever. I've always had a lot of girlfriends. My friendships mean a lot to me. And therefore, when you have a lot of girlfriends, you hear a lot of stories. And nobody is a particular character, but I take traits of people and I use the traits. And that's what I do the most.
Well, we writers like to be writing. We don't like to promote ourselves very well. And even the big 5 publishers are requiring their authors to do most of their own publicity. And that's a challenge. Have you found publicity that works for you in promoting your books?
Promoting the book was the biggest surprise to me. Because again, I didn't know that you get it developed. I also didn't know that I had to go out and promote my book. Luckily for me, I was in the advertising business. So I had spent my entire life promoting people and things. But when you apply it to yourself, it's sort of embarrassing because you're plugging yourself, and I'm not someone who plugs myself. But I found that if I was just honest on Facebook and said the things that nobody else says, I started getting a following. And some days I'll put up a picture of my cup that has the picture of my book on it, and I'll write, people tell me I'm promoting my book too much. So here's a picture of my coffee mug. Well, that coffee mug is my book. I've done stunts like I've had George Clooney, who can go buy George Clooney? Hold up one of my books. And all kinds of things like that. And over time, I've amassed a good Facebook following. I also do a lot of speaking all around the country. And it's a little different than most book speaking engagements because it's comedic. And in addition to my books, I'll talk about, my life and my children and the book world.
Well, I saw you on the stage at the annual Pulpwood Queens get together in Florida, and you really are hilarious.
I think I'm funnier not on Zoom because Zoom makes me nervous.
Well, I think they say that speaking in public is scarier than losing a spouse. So that's pretty scary, isn't it?
It really is. And the first time I had to go up, I was in Atlanta and there was this huge crowd and I had never done this before. I mean, I'm the kind of person who in 4th grade, I played a tree in the school play because I could just stand there. And I had a brown pants and a green shirt. And that's been my biggest part in my entire life. And now I'm up in front of all these people, not only talking, but you're really selling yourself. And when I got off that stage, I needed a few drinks. And maybe like a Sara Lee pound cake,
Absolutely. Are there any specific books or seminars or writing retreats or groups that you can share that improved your writing journey?
Well, one thing that I can share is the Women Fiction Writers Association, which I had joined online. I had never been to any of their events. I submitted Lift and Separate to their Star Award for debut of the year, and unbelievably, it won. So that made me a huge fan of this organization, Women's Fiction Writers Association. And this year, they're celebrating a big anniversary in Chicago in September. And I'm going, and I'm thrilled that I am speaking with the author Amy Popel, and we're going to be talking about writing humor.
Well, I look forward to seeing you there. I'm going to be in your session. Yes, I am. I'm a member of the organization as well. And having your book chosen for that award is huge because think of the thousands of members who belong to that organization.
I was, when I found out, I was at an amusement park with my tiny little grandchildren at the time, because this is like 9 years ago and the oldest one's 11. And it's like the whole carnival spinned around me because I couldn't believe it. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful launch because it made me feel like, this might be good. So I'm just honored to be speaking there.
Well, that shows that the organization is a big fan of yours. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the passage that you brought to share today, and then read a few paragraphs so we can hear your tone and voice in the book.
Okay. This is, I happen to have it here, Crazy to Leave You, which is my third book. And I'm just going to read a little from the beginning of the book so that I don't have to start explaining the book. Diets consumed me. I was either on my way up or on my way down the scale. I called my family with news of my engagement and launched my pre-wedding diet plan. It was a Saturday. I had never kicked off a diet on any day but a Monday. I had never started one in the middle of a day. Early that morning, Eric David Farkas had gotten down on his khaki-clad knee and asked me to marry him. At the time, we were floating, buoyant in a red and white hot air balloon. He said he would have brought the ring, but he had taken it to be reset. I couldn't have cared less about a ring. Only Eric was of interest to me. We sipped champagne from real crystal glasses. We ate strawberries dipped in white chocolate. We marveled at the world below. Everything that happened in the hot air balloon was more romantic than I had dared to dream. And I had done a lot of dreaming. I held a record among my friends I could have done without. I was the last to marry. Upon descent, I was flabbergasted to find Eric's parents, Myrna and Short Stanley, on the ground, gunning to take over, specifically with the wedding. My future mother-in-law was a retired event planner. No one mentioned she was a dictator. I had ideas expressed and repressed about the big day. The venue, the music, the menu, the time of year. However, Eric acquiesced to his mother, whose idea of an unpretentious, small, informal gathering was the annual fashion gala attended by A-list celebrities at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The wedding had to happen at Temple Sons of Abraham, their longtime place of worship, scene of Eric's over-the-top bar mitzvah and his parents' wedding during the Reagan years. Myrna had contacted the synagogue already. There had been a cancellation. We could hold our wedding on a Sunday in March, dreariest month of the year. The best I could hope for was black ice. The worst, a snowstorm that made it impossible for anyone to attend. Forget the month, Lauren, and the venue. Get married and start living your life. From then on, I dieted, surviving on 4 organic egg whites for breakfast, green salad, no dressing for lunch. Dinner time, I grilled a 6-ounce fillet of salmon illegally on my tiny terrace overlooking a schoolyard in Manhattan. I searched 5 states for 6 months looking for the perfect wedding gown. I was so full of pride to finally fit into a size 12, I would have worn the tag down the aisle instead of the actual dress.
Marilyn, that is so funny. And you have taken a page right out of my diet book. That sounded exactly like me, my ups and downs all my life.
Me too, up and down my whole life. And I get to use it in this book. You know, I joke around, I say, I've been researching this book since the day I started eating.
Exactly right.
The interesting thing is in Crazy to Leave You is Lauren, the protagonist, has a mother who's a body shamer. And I'm not going to tell you what happens about that, but it sets up a lot of humor. Because her mother is just one of these relentless mothers who think they're helping you, but it would help if they just shut up.
Exactly right. I try to keep my mouth shut to my daughters about weight because I have agonized over my own all my life.
You know, I have this saying, the most difficult part of being a mother is keeping your mouth shut.
So true.
Yep. It's even more difficult when you're a grandmother.
Yeah. Well, I treat the grandchildren like pets. I don't correct them or discipline them in any way.
All's good, right? My next book is about a grandmother who goes to visit her daughter to watch their 7-year-old grandchild, and the rest of it is just slapstick.
That's great. You've already had so much success. You've found an agent. You've had 3 books published with a fabulous publisher. What does writing success personally look like to you?
It changed my life. I had wanted to be a novelist. I think I had a pen in the womb, okay? And I took off when I graduated college with a degree in journalism. I had worked in publishing, and I started in magazines, and then I moved over to advertising, and I've been writing my whole life. So I always made a living writing. But my dream was always to not just write a book, because I had written a book, but it was in a drawer, was to get published. And it turns out that, I just had this thought, I want to publish a book. I didn't know it changed your life, that there was so many new people you'd meet. I've met wonderful friends through this. I'm very lucky. So it's all good. And I just want to keep writing.
Well, I'm interviewing people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s who are still writing beautiful work. So I think you can do it the rest of your life.
I certainly hope so.
What does your family think about your career as a writer?
Well, I have an interesting situation. People always ask me what my kids think when I pick up a situation that happened and I twist it around and put it in a book. And what I have to say is my eldest daughter is a playwright and a television writer. And she became a playwright before I became a published novelist. So I have gone to many plays where I'm almost certain I see myself on stage. So for that reason, she can't complain about anything. And in fact, one day, my younger daughter was telling me what she thought of something. And I said, "Why are you telling me this?" And she said, "Oh, no, I should be like my older sister and wait 3 years and put it in a play."
That's a great response.
Nobody can complain about me because they already did it.
I love that. Don't you love the push and pull between mothers and daughters?
I'm lucky to have 2 fantastic, lovely daughters.
Well, I am as well. I have 2 daughters and an only son. So I think I hit the jackpot.
Yes. No, I was just going to say, my family was all girls. In fact, our last name, Simon, is gone after my generation. And then my first grandchild was a boy. So I get to experience it secondhand.
That's even better. My dad used to say, if we could have, we would have begun with the grandchildren.
Yes. I can't, I always say, if I knew how great it was to be a grandmother, I would have had more children.
Yes. Well, Marilyn, as always, our last interview question is, our writers over 50 are quite unique. Do you have advice for writers 50 and above?
Oh, yes, but it's the same advice I would give anyone. You have to write. During COVID, I had my whole family living in my house, and I had to get away from it all. So I would tell them that I'm writing till noon, and that's when I'm going to come out and help with the kids and whatever else. And I would go up in my room, and I would just basically sit there till noon to just clear my head, because there were 15 people in this house.
Wow.
And 5 cats. So I would sit there, and then one day it occurred to me, when I was telling them I'm going up to write, that I could really go upstairs and write. And that book became Crazy to Leave You. So my first thing is you have to write. The other thing that has worked for me is joining a workshop. You may not find the right workshop. It may take a lot. It's like looking for a psychiatrist, you know, I mean, you got to try a few. And that's good because you have other people hearing your writing, and it also gives you responsibility. Like if you have to hand in 5 to 10 pages on Monday, you'll do the homework. So those are the two things that I would recommend, is to start writing and to find a workshop.
That's great advice. And I think anyone who does that will be successful. I think, you know, I'm a person who works on deadlines. I set deadlines for myself if I don't have one from a publisher. And I think we need to do that. We need to make sure that we're writing and staying in the story, even if we're just thinking about it when we're away from it. But I think that, you know, to find your sense of humor and to see things that are funny in everyday life, I think that's just a real gift. And so we're very appreciative that you've shared it here with us today. And we're happy to now say that you're counted among our authors over 50.
I can also, on May 11th, be counted among your authors over 70.
Congratulations. I'm close.
Thank you.
I'm close behind you. So thanks so much for being with us, Marilyn.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday, when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend. And check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's D-A-I-L-Y, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing. And remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.